Senator Petitclerc.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions, my first question may be for Dr. Vandrey on the screen. I want to get a sense, because it seems to me like with all the different, so there's two questions in one. One question is how prevalent is edibles? Is it, how big a market is it? Are we talking, and I know you touched on it, but how popular is it in your experience, or is it going to be? And maybe I'll ask the other one as well. It seems to me that depending on the diversity of edible products, the complexity of labeling and having proper information on dosage, but also on how long it takes for the specific edible to take effect, and how long does, so it seems to me like there's a lot of things that could be a lot of information that could be on each of these products. So how complex are we talking about when it comes to providing proper information depending on each of these edible products, or is it simple but I make it complicated?
No, you're absolutely right. It is complicated. To address your first question, the edible market is big. It's not as big as inhalation, but I think estimates somewhere, and I'm ballparking here, is that roughly a quarter of cannabis users will ingest edibles. That percent is increasing over time. So it's not an inconsequential market in the U.S., and it depends on where you look to see what numbers you'll see. But edible use is normative now. The more you have access, the more people are going to use it. And then in terms of the different types of products, I think that without constraints, you'll see hundreds of different food types and liquids being produced, because again, this is a capitalist market and companies are going to create something novel and new to try to corner market share. So you're going to see variety just because you can. What we don't know very well is how important that matrix is in delivery of the dose. So hypothetically, we can say if you take a pill and you swallow it and the drug goes directly into your stomach, you might have less absorption and slower absorption than if you have it in a lollipop that you suck on, where you get buccal absorption in addition to gastrointestinal absorption. But we have not done that research study to understand what the differences are there. And so that's, again, an example of where I think we need more research here. We need regulatory science to inform these decisions. And so the more variety you have, the more complicated the regulations become. With respect to not only dosing and absorption, but also with regards to quality control and test methods, right? So you'd need to establish a standard procedure for manufacturing, testing, and labeling a brownie versus a lollipop versus a soda versus popcorn versus a pill. And so it all gets, the bigger it is, the more complicated it becomes. The other issue too that has to be considered, and this is something that came from a meeting I had with Health Canada last fall, is that if it's in a food product, do you label all of the food contents and ingredients and dietary information, right? So do you put the number of calories? Do you put how much sodium is in it? And if you do that, do you then come into a situation where people are incorporating cannabis-infused products into their daily diet and taking them for dietary content versus just as a drug? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's something you have to think about.
Okay. Yes, quickly, Ms. Gear.
In the first quarter of 2014 in Colorado, which is the first year that recreational sales were allowed, edibles made up 30% of the legal sales. By the third quarter of 2016, that grew to 45%. So this is quite a large market. And in addition, a recent study with over 5,000 high school students in Northern California saw that 72% of lifetime marijuana users and 82% of past month marijuana users reported having used edibles. So this is a big market, it's a growing market, which is what is so alarming to me.
Thank you. Senator Seidman.
Thank you, Chair.